Today we're going to introduce compound inequalities and explain to you the meanings of and or in a compound inequality. But first, we're going to take questions from the classroom and remote about any of the problems from yesterday that might have given you trouble. Anybody here? You have one, Mary. You said yes, no? No. Okay, what about online? Do we have any questions about any of the problems that you had to do yesterday?
I have number 5.
On which page? This one?
Solving the 2 steps. Yes.
Number 5 right here where my fingers are, right there?
Yeah, that one.
All right, we'll do that one right now. Okay, I'm betting that the fraction is still giving you trouble, yes? Line down through the sign, circle the variable. So that means we're going to focus on this side of the equation now, or inequality, because that's where the variable is. Now, if there was a lot of stuff on top of a fraction, then we would get rid of the fraction first. But we only have just one thing here, so we're going to get rid of the straggler first. It's something you just have to get used to. So I'm going to get rid of the 2 by adding 2. I have to balance the inequality and then add straight down. A negative and a positive of the same number zero each other out. It's an additive inverse. And -9 plus a +2, if the signs are different in add or subtract, you think subtract and give it the sign of the largest looking number, which is 9, so it's going to be negative. I also look at something like this to say, if I'm already in the hole, 9, maybe $9 in my account, and I go deposit $2, am I out of the red yet? I still haven't put enough in my account to balance it out. So however you choose to remember your negatives and positives, go back and review those. We did not multiply or divide by a negative, so our sign will stay the same, and we bring down your x over 5. Circle the variable so we can keep our focus where it needs to be. We want the x to be by itself, so I have to get rid of the 5. It is divided by 5 right now, so I have to do the opposite, which means multiply by 5. I put it over 1 simply because I'm working with fractions. Since I multiplied by 5 on this side, I have to multiply by 5 on this side. A positive times a negative, this is a multiply rule, means I have an odd number of negatives, so it's going to be -35. I'm going to look and see if I multiplied or divided by a negative in this step, and I did not. So the sign still stays the same. This 5 and this 5 cancel out, and I have an x left. When the x is by itself, then this is the answer. Now, this is one of those that's backwards to what we're used to when we start to graph this. And so you can do one of 2 things the way we explained yesterday. You can either read from the variable, always read from the variable, x is greater than -35. Or we said yesterday, if you can imagine this written on a card, and if you take the whole card and flip it over, then it would look like this. And this card flipped over is the same thing. Notice how the big part is at the X, the big part is at the X. So we know we did it correctly. So now we're going to graph on a number line. We said we're just going to use 0 as a separator. These are all positive numbers. These are all negative numbers. And then we're going to graph the important number. The important number is in the answer. So let's say this is negative 35. It's important, so I'm circling it. Now you have two choices. Do I color in the negative 35? The negative 35?
No.
Color in the dot?
No, you don't color it.
Right, Isabel, I'm hearing you too. We don't color it in because it doesn't have this line here.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So we leave it open, and then which way do we shade? Be careful looking at this because the X isn't over here. And so we're not going to go to the left. We need to look at the sign where the X is on the left.
Negative 35.
You go to the right.
And we're going to shade to the right. That is exactly right. All the way. Don't stop at the 0. Just keep going and going and going and going.
Miss Deborah,
Yes, Sherry.
was it the sign supposed to change?
Say it one more time.
The sign, we weren't supposed to change the sign?
No, there's not a place where you mathematically change the sign because we never divided or multiplied by a negative. Each step, here we added to, here we multiplied, but it was by a positive. Yeah, it
Okay.
stays the same. The only reason this is flipped is because we took the whole card and flipped it over. It's not mathematical. We just did that so it's easier to graph. Okay, Sherry?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any more? I can do one more from yesterday, and then we're going to start compound inequalities.
Do I have that one something?
Do you have it somewhere? Yes, it's on the second page, and it's number 5. It's the one that says DS1. Okay. And it's number. Is it? No, it's not that one. Do the other one. That one. That's the one you did right there.
Yeah.
And there's the answer. Yeah. I've done it. All right. Okay. Okay, let's move on. Y'all didn't have any more, right?
No.
Okay. So we're going to move to compound inequalities. Now, the reason they say compound is because what they're doing is just putting more than one inequality together. So it means we're going to have more than one inequality sign, but they're going to be worked the same way so y'all can breathe. First, we need to talk about and or. Now, your compound inequalities will, your two problems will be connected by either an and or an or, okay? And let me say about the and, sometimes they will write the word and, or they just won't have any word. If they don't have any word, it's and. Okay, they will either write the word, or if there is a word missing, it's and. Or they will always write. Okay, now when you see an and, this mostly applies to graphing. Okay, these tell us how to graph. The and says, I have to, let me try to put an example. the graph will only be where the two graphs intersect. You'll understand this better when we actually do a problem. Let's say that one of the parts of the compound, say I'm supposed to graph this way, okay? And one of the answers says I'm supposed to graph this way. Well, in an and, then the only part that you're going to graph is going to be the part that overlaps. Do y'all see? So the actual graph will only be this part, because that's where this graph and this graph overlap. So this is the actual graph right there. This is just to help us find it. This is the actual graph. That's an and. And is where they overlap. Now, or means you graph everything that they say. So if I have something that says, the first equation we graph is like this, and the second equation we graph looks like this, then your actual graph that you're going to show for an answer is all of this, all of this. This is to help us. This is the actual graph. Or means graph it all. Here's another example of the or that you will see. Let's say that here is when we graph the first one. And here is the second one that we graph. So on an or, our actual graph is going to include all of this and all of this. Because it has all of this one and all of this one. This is an or. This is and. And overlaps, or is everything. Okay? Drink some more coffee.
It's not working.
Your eyes are like,
I know.
okay. So I hope everyone has this in your notes. I want you to refer to it. I'm going to erase it all so that I have room for my problems. And I will pick one off of your page. If you'll notice, most all the worksheets that I send to you, the problems are on the front and then the answers are on the back. Well, this last page, which ends up being 2 pages, they have problems on the front and the back. So you actually have 2 pages of problems, and then the next page is 2 pages of answers. Okay, so the front and the back have plenty of problems for us to practice. All right, here we go. Let's just start with the very first one. This is number 1 on your compound inequalities. It says m minus 2 is less than -8, or, pay attention, or m over 8 is greater than 1. And the or you can keep in the back of your mind that when we graph, it's going to be graphing everything. Okay, now on an or, they gave us 2 separate inequalities. I'll show you an and in a minute. So since these are separated by or, we're just going to work this problem first. Draw a line Circle your variable. We know we have to get rid of the 2, add 2. We look to see, did we multiply or divide by a negative? No. So the sign stays the same. I have an M on this side and a -6 on this side. That's the first part that we're going to graph of our compound inequality. Let's go to the other side. We see that the only thing that we have to get rid of is the 8. It's divided by 8, so I'm going to multiply by 8 and multiply by 8. I look to see if I multiplied or divided by a negative. No, it was a positive, so the sign stays the same. The 8's cancel, and I have an M is greater than 8. This is where the OR comes in. Here's our graph. 0 is just a separator. Let's graph this one first. Now, on compound inequalities, sometimes it helps students if they use different colors, okay? So if you choose to use different colors, maybe a blue for this and a red for that, then you can see the difference. What I'm going to do is graph one above and one below, and then I'll know what to put on my answer. So the one below, and here's one above, okay. Okay, let's look for the important number here. We're going to graph. It's going to be -6 is about right here. It's important. Do I color it in or not?
No.
No, that is correct. And then I'm going to shade to the left. This is what this one would look like. And then on the bottom, we're going to find 8 over here. It's important. Do I color this in?
Yes.
It
Yes.
is not equal to, so I do not color it in. There's not an equal sign.
Oh, okay.
And then I'm going to shade to the right. And now I have a decision to make for my actual answer. My actual answer depends on this. Or says on my actual answer, I do everything. I graph everything. So my actual answer is going to have 6, and it's going to have all of this, and 8, and it's going to have all of this. This one is separated, and this is your actual answer here. So what we did, we graphed them separately on 2 different lines, or you can do them in different colors. And then I looked at how they're connected with the OR. The OR says graph everything. And that's what we did on our actual answer. We graphed everything. Any questions on this one? The good news is the solving part is no different than what you've been doing already. Let's do one that has an and. Yeah, number 2. Let's go ahead with number 2. Same page, number 2. -1 is less than 9 plus n is less than 17. Okay, now the very first thing I would like for you to do is look through that problem. Do you see and or? So what is it? If it doesn't show, it's an and. So to help yourself right here, just go ahead and say, This is going to be an and. Okay? Now, here we go. In this case, we have one huge problem that has two inequality signs. Believe it or not, this is going to be solved the same way we solve all of our equations. We draw our line down through the signs, and in this case, there's two. That creates three sides instead of two sides. Now, this is the same. We have to keep all the sides balanced. We're going to circle our variable, which means we're going to work right here. I want the n to be by itself, and so I'm going to have to subtract a 9. In order to keep this balance, I've got to subtract a 9 and subtract a 9. Now, let's decide already on our signs. Are we going to flip our signs, or are they going to stay the same?
Stay the same.
They're going to stay the same, because although this is a negative, it's not a multiply or divide. So over here, I have a negative 10. It stays the same, stays the same. This zeroes out. I have an n, and I have 8. Now that the n is by itself, we're finished. What we're going to do is just like in the last problem. Here's our answer. And let me try to put this in a different color. Okay. And here's one of our equations, and here's one of our equations. This is going to be our final answer right here. All right. Now, what I do here is we have two equations, but this looks like one big long one. Well, what we're going to do first is just look at this part. And it says n is greater than negative 10. N is greater than negative 10. So I've got to find the negative 10. I circle it because it's important. I'm just doing this one right here. And do I color in the negative 10? No. Which way do I shade? Be careful. N is greater than, because if you flip the card, it's going to be greater than. So we're going to shade all the way to the right. Be very careful when your variable's on the right-hand side. You need to do a little adjusting. So this is what this equation looks like. Okay, and now you isolate this part. And we're going to graph this part. This part says n represents all the numbers that are less than 8. So here is 8. Do I color it in or not? No. And I shade which way? To the left. So now that I have both of these graphed separately, then I need to look here. And what does and tell me to do?
Everything.
Say it again.
Color everything.
No, the or is everything.
Oh, the or is everything.
And is overlap.
Oh, yeah, overlap.
It's overlap. So what I need to do, here's the end of this one. And here's the end of this one. So on my actual graph here, I will have an open circle on negative 10. I will have an open circle on 8. And the part that overlaps, these are the same. See, it overlaps here and here. This does not overlap. This stuff does not overlap, but these are the same. And so we're going to simply shade just the part that overlaps. That's the and The and is an overlap. So this is the graph of the answer. Is it right, Mary? Did you look it up?
Yes,
And it's okay?
yeah, we did it yesterday.
Yes. Oh, okay. So what do y'all think? It's going to take some thinking, but thank goodness the steps are the same. You just need to remember the and or the or. The and is if you see the word and, or if there's no word, then it's and. The or they will always give you. Are we good? Is this enough to mess up your brains for a while?
Yep.
Are you guys okay with this?
Can we do another one?
Yes. Is there a particular one you want to pick out?
No, just any of your choice. Well, I'd rather do the and.
You'd rather do the and. Okay, let's look on the back of that page and see if I can find an and. Let's do, a lot of them are ors, aren't they? I think we should do number 13. It's on the back of this page. Let's do number 13, Sherry. I want you to look at it before I even get it written on the board and tell me why you know that this is an and, number 13.
Because it don't have the word in it.
Because it does not have a word in it. That is correct. Number 13, negative 36 is less than 3p minus 6 is less than negative 15. It looks horrible until you draw your line down through the signs. It'll help. Because you can kind of see the three parts when you put that line down through there. Makes it a little bit easier. Now, we just decided that since there was no word, then we know this is an and problem. And it helps to go ahead and tell yourself now so you don't have to worry about it. We circled the variable. It's only in one spot. So we're going to look at this. If we want the p by itself, I'm going to have to get rid of the 3 and the minus 6. Which one goes first?
The 6.
The minus 6. The minus 6, we have to get rid of this. We do it to all the sides so that we can make sure that we keep everything balanced. Here in the middle, we have same numbers, opposite signs, make additive inverse. That's gone. So I have a 3p. Did I divide or multiply by a negative? No. So the signs are going to stay the same. And over here, again, you need to be aware of your rules for adding and subtracting negatives. This will be a negative 30. This will be a negative 9. We circle the variable again because it's not by itself, which says I've got to get rid of the 3. It's multiplied, so I'm going to divide by 3. I have to balance all 3 sides. I'm going to look at what I did. I divided by 3. Do I need to change these signs on the next step?
No.
No, because I divided, but I didn't divide by a negative. So they're going to stay the same. Negative 10, go review your negative rules. P, that's a 1p, and negative 3. The p is by itself. So here's our answer. Let me see if I left enough room to graph. Okay. So this is going to be our actual answer. This is going to be one of our graphs. This is going to be our other one. Using different colors is actually kind of fun, but it's up to you. All right, the first one we're going to look at is this part. We're going to put the P with the front part and focus only on this to graph it. Now notice that the P is on what we call the wrong side. So you can either read it from the P is greater than -10, or you can flip your card. Okay? P is greater than -10. -10 is the important number. I circle that. I do not color it in because there isn't an equal sign here. And then if P is greater than, then I need to graph this way. Okay, that's how I would graph that one. Now, that one's graphed. We need to do this one now. Include the P again. This one says P is less than -3. So I have -3 here. I don't color it in because it's not equal to, and this says to shade to the left. Now that's not the end all. We have to decide now, before we give our final answer, we need to decide, am I going to graph the overlap or am I going to graph everything? The overlap. I'm doing the overlap. So I look at the smallest place here and the largest place. So my actual answer in the graph will be this circle on -10, this circle on -3, and the only place that they overlap is right here. So this is the only graph of that. The and says to graph the overlap, or says to graph it all. This is the answer here. Is that helping, Sherry?
Yes, ma'am.
It's just going to be something that, I'm sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was sneezing.
So it's just going to be something that you'll have to work on. I'm very happy that the problems that you have the answers. So you can either find out what you did wrong, or you can get hold of me and say, what did I do wrong? Okay. Compound inequalities. Y'all are awfully quiet. We have a student taking his test this morning at 10. Simon is taking his test today. We'll let you know. So this is all I want you to do today, is concentrate on compound inequalities. Nothing new except and or is the new thing that you learned this time. Always check for dividing or multiplying by a negative. And then be very careful if the variable is on what we call the wrong side. Read from the variable or flip the card. Any questions right now?
No.
I think the questions will come up as you begin to work. So feel free to text me any pictures, call me. I'm right here at my desk to help you all or to help the people in my classroom. That's what I do. But I'm finished for today. I don't want to overwhelm you. Are we good?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. You know I love y'all.
Love you too, Miss Deborah.
See you tomorrow.
Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. Y'all are really deep in thought. That's a good thing. I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.